Have you wondered what financial advisors actually think about finances? This is your sneak peek at the conversations within Financial Design Studio. Michelle Smollenberger, the CEO here, will be your host as you go behind the designs. Welcome back to the Behind the Designs podcast. My name is Anna Lewis. I am the executive producer of this podcast, and I am also the voice you hear at the beginning and end of each episode. Today, I am the host. This whole episode is about reflecting, and you're going to see why I'm the host in just a second. Today, we want to talk about what matters to you. Beyond the traditional, my family, my job, we want to talk about the whys behind that. What really matters to you deep down? Do your resources of time, money, and energy align with that? Without understanding your why, it can be very challenging to create a plan, much less stick to one, whether that's a financial plan or just your New Year's resolutions. Now, with all that in mind, I'd like to introduce today's guest, Michelle Smollenberger, CEO of Financial Design Studio. So far into the podcast, we've not actually introduced you. So I thought today could be a fun episode to introduce Michelle to the world. Welcome to the podcast, Michelle.
Thank you, Anna. Welcome to this side of the microphone.
Yes,
this is going to be great.
This is going to be fun. I thought interviewing you could be a great episode because your story is a perfect example of living according to what matters to you. So let's start at the very beginning. Michelle, what do you do? Tell us about your job.
Yes. So here at Financial Design Studio, like you mentioned, I am a financial advisor. My role is on the business side, the CEO, and honestly, someone has to be named the CEO. So there are 4 of us partners. We are equal partners. And so I was probably just the one that said, I would love to do that. So that is my role. On a day-to-day basis, I really focus on kind of talking with new clients, the marketing, really working closely with you, Anna, and then also working closely with Rob, Trevor, and Steve with all clients. So that's one unique thing that we tell clients, and that is true, is that everybody's working on every client. So we're all aware of that. So as a team, they might be managing the day-to-day, but we're all pulled in. So it's kind of a variety of things, kind of really oversight of a lot of different areas, and then digging in when needed.
So what led you to the financial world?
Yes, yeah. So if I go back, all the way back, my first introduction with money, when I really remember thinking this is something I really enjoy, was an accounting class in high school. I believe it was my junior and senior years. There was an accounting class you could take, as an elective, and I'm pretty sure there was like 4 people in this class. Yeah, and it was really fun. You kind of get the simulation, so it's like a packet of here's all the business documents and everything, and then you really just spend the semester going through the project. I loved that. So that was probably my first introduction where I saw this is something I really enjoy.
And that was like professional accounting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, exactly. It was like bookkeeping, credits, debits, back to the very basics.
So you started with this accounting class.
Mm-hmm.
But what led you to start Financial Design Studio?
Yeah. So after graduating from college, and we'll fill that gap in a minute, but after graduating from college, I had a good idea that I wanted to work with clients on a personal level. And so I worked at a firm for 12 years doing financial planning, really started kind of from the ground up. So doing a lot of the paperwork behind the scenes. And so I learned a lot. And I would just encourage anybody, if you as you're starting out, from college, a lot of times we want the fancy, job title, and we want to jump there fast. But I will just tell you, there's so much I learned in the process of learning from behind the scenes and the paperwork and all of those things, so that I honestly believe it just makes me a better advisor from learning all of that. So that's just something I would encourage people. Don't get frustrated or discouraged if you have to start there, because it's actually a great place to start to then work your way up to being able to know now when you're an advisor, that you're going to have clients do paperwork, and what that's like. So it's not just saying, here, so-and-so I'm going to hand you off to them. And I don't even know what that experience is going to be like. So it's a really great place to start. So that's how I got started. Was there eventually before we started FDS. I was the vice president of that firm. So was there working with clients, really enjoyed that. And so there really just came a point in time where we're going to talk about today. But for our family, we just said, you know what? we need to start our own business. And it became a combination of really what we wanted to be doing with our time, what was important to us, and what we wanted the flexibility to do. And so starting a business, not that it's an easy feat, so you don't just do it because you want what you want. So don't hear that message. What's really important is there were things that were important to us. And so when we left, we started this. And the reason I say that is because it wasn't leaving saying, a lot of people leave something because of a bad experience or some negative thing. And, you leave on bad terms. And that wasn't honestly like our mindset when we were leaving. Of course, no place is perfect, but it was really just, this is what's right for our family right now. So starting FDS, it was just Steve and I, and it was very exciting, honestly, because we knew the way we wanted to be working with clients. And so even coming up with the name and the logo and all of these things, as we've talked about in our very first podcast, those were exciting things because it really reflects who we are as people and what we enjoy and like. So that part was fun. And then obviously adding Rob and Trevor have only made our team so much stronger. And so, I mean, if nothing else, one of the things I hope that clients hear, and even in our marketing, is that, when I'm talking about everyone on our team, it's because I fully trust and believe in their abilities and capabilities and expertise. I mean, I'm seeing it from this side, from a professional side, and I can just tell you, these people know what they're doing and talking about, and they're so gifted in their areas. So it's honestly just a pleasure to work with our team. So it has been really great. It's not without challenges. It's not, not everything is always rosy. It's hard too because you're growing a business. However, I couldn't be more happy with the people that I get to work with every day.
You've built an amazing team, and it's an honor to be on it.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about why do you love what you do? What gets you out of bed every morning?
Yeah. So I mentioned I'd kind of fill in this gap. So in high school, I loved this accounting class. And like every high schooler going to college, they're thinking, what do I want to do? What do I want to study? What am I going to be? And so that accounting class really helped me to kind of have an idea of what I wanted to do. So going into college, from growing up, I always wanted to be a teacher. And so I thought, I'm going to be a teacher. I would play teacher. I would print worksheets and probably do them myself and grade them.
Amazing.
I had a grade book. Yeah. I mean, I was all in on the teaching. But someone told me teachers don't make a lot of money. And, what's interesting is you'll probably identify like voices in your story too. And some of them you listen to, some of them you don't. We're going to talk about that too. However, a teacher was something I always thought I would do. But going into college, I decided accounting was something more interesting. So I started in the accounting school, and I did get a job my freshman year for a psychiatrist I was working for, and did all the bookkeeping. So was filing insurance claims.
Wow.
Yeah, like writing all of the notes, dictating everything. And so, I mean, it was a whole new world for me on that side of kind of what he did. However, I learned so much. I mean, I was really the person, besides he would see patients, and there was another counselor in there, but I was doing all the, the office work, the day-to-day, the accounting, QuickBooks, things like that. So really quickly I learned, and this was, while I'm going to school. So it was a great job. And I also really quickly got to learn that everything I was applying in my accounting classes or learning, I was getting to apply. And so in that process, I also learned, though, that I really wanted to work with people. So, patients would come in and I would have interactions with them. I might have to say, hey, you still owe money, or remind people gently. However, I saw really quickly that I actually wanted more interaction with people. I wanted to talk with them. I wanted to help them. And so just doing the numbers wasn't going to be enough. And so I'm thankful that I had the opportunity because quickly, as a freshman, sophomore, and I actually did, worked at that job all through college, thankfully. But that was something early on I was able to see. So then in seeing that, that led me into kind of business management. Then I wanted to switch my degree to that. I also worked at a Coliseum as an usher and supervised all the ushers. And so
amazing.
I had a few jobs in college, which I'm so grateful for because they all shape how I got to where I am. So as an usher, I was supervising, you hire college students and you have to tell them what to do and make sure they show up. And we actually had to do reviews and we gave, salary increases or, hourly rate increases. And so I was doing that whole process for like peers, which, you have to be doing the thing that you're telling someone else they should do better at, or or they're doing a great job at. So just some of those things that I learned even in that process. Then eventually when I left, I was kind of the supervisor over all the areas like ushering, ticket takers, and security. That was kind of more of a managerial role, that business management. That's why I really enjoyed that. And so then I wanted to switch to that. But someone told me that women do not run businesses. I'm pointing out these things because these were voices I did listen to, and they did shape, paths or, where I went or didn't go. And so I decided not to kind of pursue the business management degree, even though I loved all of that stuff and loved what I was doing, which was kind of in that role. It ended up that I had a friend that told me about financial planning, and financial planning is like the perfect marriage of the accounting with the numbers and the people, with kind of this background of talking and working with people and not necessarily counseling directly, but you're really helping people understand money. So it became the perfect marriage of everything, along that journey that I was looking for. So my senior year, financial planning, I had kind of figured it out by then. So I'm thankful for all of those jobs I had that I feel like really refined kind of, here's what you should be doing, here's what you're good at, and it's going to help accomplish all these things you want to do. So that is how I got to my major in financial planning. Then when I graduated from college, I was really willing to go anywhere. So I applied everywhere. I applied to a firm, or MetLife in New Jersey. And then a firm here. I'm pretty sure I was searching on Christmas Day because I graduated in December, found the firm here in Illinois that I interviewed with. They, flew me out, interviewed me, called me back before I got home and offered me the job. And I just said, that's the kind of firm I want to work with, someone who can make a decision quickly. And so I started working with them and was there 12 years before we started our firm. So just, all of that, hopefully this helps someone, out there even that's graduating or getting ready to, just in your process of what you're looking for in an employer, those pieces, those are the things that stood out to me and kind of what helped me land where I was. So
Right. And that's so interesting. You went from not knowing anything about where you wanted to go to doing the paperwork to now running your own business, which you thought you could never do.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about how working with people with their money, like, what's your mindset on that?
Yeah. So really, if I were to summarize, a lot of these things I've been saying kind of in pieces, the biggest way that I can summarize this is that I really care about helping people to have and develop the successful relationship with their finances. And this is really this, a successful lifelong relationship with their finances. The reason that I care so much about that is because I think there's a lot of, if you think about a relationship, and just think about family, someone that you're with for the long term. So let's just think like a sibling or a parent. When you're young, you have a different relationship than when you're older. And day to day and month by month and year by year, that relationship changes. Sometimes you go through things that are hard or sad or discouraging. And sometimes it's something exciting that you're celebrating together. So that relationship looks different all along the way. The same exact thing happens with your finances when you're managing your money, when you're young and your parents are teaching you, how to handle it, or you're just spending whatever you get.
Right.
We all have a different
That's so relatable.
tendency of what we do. So that's one step in this relationship. And then you learn from this, eventually if you're like, wait, I want to have some money left, you start to learn, well, then I should probably not spend it, or I should save some more. So you might change your behavior. Then you get in college, you're spending money on, and you may not be making a lot of money. Then you get out of college, you have a lot of money from this first new job and things are great, or you're still struggling through. Then you have a great income. Now you have a family, and now you don't have money anymore again.
Right.
Then you retire and you've saved all this money, and now you have money again. And you see how it just ebbs and flows. And so your relationship, just like with people, with money, changes and transitions at different stages of your life. And so one of the things, and you'll hear about this a lot on our recent episodes that we've been talking about, and how, emotions and all of these pieces are so important, because at each of these different stages, you're feeling a different feeling about how am I saving or how am I spending. And personally, you have to adjust to that. So I love having those conversations. So, while we'll talk facts and numbers, I love that too. I love presenting a plan. I love, sharing with someone, here's all of the strategies you can do. to get to have as much as possible or to be able to reach your goals. But I really enjoy, the person that just comes in and we're just having a conversation, even a hard conversation of, how are you? Because someone just passed away. Or what is it? You're going to be retiring next year. Is that exciting? Is that scary? I love those conversations. I could sit and have them all day. Yeah. So that's why that's so important to me, because that's what I really want to help people develop and learn how to do that well, but also learn that like your advisor is your partner in this and they want to hear this. I want to hear these things. I want to have these conversations. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to fix everything. If you're telling me that your goal and something that's important is like health and fitness, I'm not going to be your health and fitness coach, but I absolutely want to hear about it. And I want to hear that you're enjoying maybe spending more time doing that after retirement, or that this is your New Year's resolution and it's going well. Mm-hmm. It's those types of things I want to hear, So I want people to know that with their financial advisor, it's a very personal relationship because your money is very personal. So I just hope people know that I care about that. I want to hear these things. So yeah, it's really this helping people have a successful relationship, lifelong relationship with their money.
Yeah, and I love that. And you hit upon an interesting point there. Like, it's not just finances. There are emotions a part of that too. Yeah. And just like that, we are whole human beings. We are multifaceted. We have so many aspects to who we are. Mm-hmm. And so we've just talked about the professional side of you, what matters to you professionally. I'd love to hear more about you personally. Yeah. We've all seen CEOs who make business who they are. They live, eat, sleep, breathe it. But that's not you. I dare say that you have a life outside of FDS, even though it's such a rich element of your life. Mm-hmm. This brings us to our next question. What matters to you in the grand scheme of your life? What do you care about? What are you passionate about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's probably not going to be a surprise that it's very similar to my answer kind of professionally. Mm-hmm. However, it is a little bit different. So one of the things, it's relationship. So I very much care that people, whoever I'm with, so if that's friends, family, so Emma, Steve, if that's parents, siblings, I very much care that they know that I care about them, but also that there's nothing that is limiting them, so that anything is possible. So one of the biggest things, I'm naturally just kind of an optimistic person.
Yes.
Energetic.
Yes.
If you say, let's go run and do this, I'm like, let's go. The more, the merrier. When my friends say, can you pick up my kids after school? I'm like, absolutely, fill the car. Like that.
Amazing.
Right? Like the more, the merrier. That's just my personality. And I'm thankful for that. How that comes out then and how like really it's displayed and kind of what's important to me personally is, as we were starting our business and as we talk about kind of that's what was right for our family, I wanted to be able to drop Emma off at school, pick her up from school. Now, this doesn't mean like every day, but I wanted the ability to drive home from school and have those conversations. How was your day? How did you do on this test?
Right.
How was this?
Yeah.
How was lunch? What did you eat for lunch? That's really important that if we have the ability to have our own business, if we have the ability, even if you're working for another company and you have a lunch break and you can do something, or you can go in the morning or the afternoon and pick up, those are the things that I want, my family to know I care. I want others to know. And so these are the ways that then it starts to play out in my life. So, on the calendar, you just block, okay, I'm going to be out for an hour, driving to pick up. It doesn't mean that you have to stop working or that you can't do these things. You just rearrange your schedule a little bit. And so that's just an example of those things that are important. One of the biggest things kind of that comes with this is, probably mostly like with Emma, our daughter, if there's something that she wants to do, I am not going to be the person to tell her that she can't do it. I mean, like in like a dreaming sort of way. So, for example, when she was little, she was going to be a football player, like an NFL football player. And in my head, I'm thinking, there are no female NFL football players. Okay. And so it's just kind of like, okay, knowing that, as a kid, like that's going to change, right? When she starts to see, well, that would hurt to get hit. Things like
it definitely
that,
would.
Right. Then it was MLB. She loves all sports. So she just loves watching. And so is Major League Baseball, which I think she still has a little bit of, but, that became that. And now she's really into swim team, and it's like, I could go to the Olympics. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell her she can't. If at some point she decides, maybe this isn't as important to me as I thought it was, and so that isn't my goal, but I still really enjoy doing this, great. I'm not going to be the person to, remind her, oh, okay, you didn't do this or that. And just be like, oh, okay, something else became more important. But if there is something, I really believe, I feel like something that I've seen with clients is that, and even just, like growing up, parents have a really important role, and in this sense of how we help them kind of follow and enjoy the things that they say that they love. So, kids will have a variety of different talents or gifts or things that they love. As parents, we get the ability, or, sometimes it's kind of like a struggle to say, okay, you can't do all of these, right? So you're kind of like, what are the one or two things? And sometimes it's like, I don't know, how can I do this cheaply? So it doesn't mean you spend all the money. It could just be, well, here, let's get a book on someone that's done that, right? And we go check it out from the library. I feel like parents have this really great relationship with kids in that they can encourage them, they can support them, they can cheer them on. And because as you grow up and you get older, you start to know the risks, that you're going to take on. So like when we were going to start our business, it wasn't this, oh, we're just going to leave our jobs and start a business. It's not some small decision, right? So as an adult, you start to realize there's risks with this. So you know that. But what is really hard and what we don't hear enough of are encouragement, a champion to say, hey, I'll be praying for you. I hope that's going well. How's it going? Hey, how can I help? Things like that, or I hope that works out. Those kind of things. That's the stuff I think as parents we get the ability to do. And so that's something I just love that, because then what's cool about that is if you are the person, that's your personality, you champion, encourage, you're actually going to get to hear a lot from who you're encouraging. They're going to tell you, they're going to share more things with you because you're encouraging them.
Right,
you're championing, you're saying, hey, it's okay. Like, wow, you cut time off of this last swim race. It may not have been as fast as you wanted, but it's like, hey, you did, like, that's amazing. That's what this is all about. Well, now, if you're not reminding them of all their failures, they're going to share a lot more. And then they might actually be sharing the hard stuff. And you might, then you get the chance to say, yeah, I totally understand. Like, I could see that's kind of a bummer, but remember this. And I feel like this, just in this world, I feel like it's very easy to find people who will remind us of our failures, our faults, our shortcomings. But I think it can be rare to have people that are just there to build us up and just to say, hey, but you do a great job at this. And so I think that's why that's probably something that's so important to me. I had that growing up. My parents were very encouraging of, singing, sports, all of these things, whether I was good or not. I'm sure there were things where it was like, oh, okay, but that's probably why too, that I feel like, okay, I can do this because I kind of saw what that was like. So,
right.
And I think that it's something easy to change. Like I've kind of mentioned, it's very easy. You can just say, oh, let me just change how I say this or what I say in response to what they're sharing with me. So
I think it's very interesting that you care most about what matters to other people, and you like to make space for that. We see that in how you treat your family, in how you treat your clients, in how you engage with your community. It's all over your life.
I don't want people to think that I do this perfectly. Like, this is where we're all growing. This is actually the part probably that I love the most, is that we do mess up. We do, there are days where you're like, oh, this is important, but I wouldn't know that because you're not showing me that, so like I, as a person, like absolutely fail at these things and will mess up. Like we will, we're human. So I don't want people to think, oh, wow, she's really got it all together. I love the process of learning. So like when someone messes up and then they realize it and next time it makes them better, that is actually what I love, because that is where you see the growth. That right there is like the little piece of the big picture. That's what I love seeing, because then like someone's trying and they're getting it and they're learning. Yeah. That's like that little growth piece. So like, even Steve and I, as we run a business together, we like for our marriage, we go to marriage counseling once a week. And it's amazing, like just that time. And again, we're not perfect. We're not getting it right all the time. But when you see that growth, but like these little glimpses of that, that is actually what's super encouraging, because it gives you hope. It gives you hope that I can do that thing, or there is hope for this to get better or this change to happen. So I think that's why it's like kind of this growth that leads to, this hope that you have.
Yeah. And this isn't just talk. Like anybody who looks at your life can see that, like the process and the growth and how much you love that. But before we get into the how to make this part of your life and taking action, what if somebody listening doesn't know what matters to them?
Yeah.
Because it can be hard to identify like what's really motivating your actions, or what do you really want from your life, your career, your finances, your family.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone who's trying to identify what does matter to them?
So this is really similar. I feel like when you're kind of like starting with a financial plan, it's kind of like, tell me, what are your goals? And I mean, unless you sit and think about this, people don't know. So this is why we ease into it. Okay. So a great way that you could just see like what matters to me. And I know people have said this before, so I'm not making this up. But if you showed me your checkbook and your calendar, like you could quickly see what is important to you. Now, someone might look at their calendar and say, well, I just work. Okay. And that might not be important to them, right? They might not say that's important to me. That's exactly where you're starting. So you're looking at your calendar, you're looking at your checkbook, and you're saying, what do I spend my time doing? What do I spend my money on or for? Mm-hmm. And if those don't align, like if you say, this is what I care about, this is what I enjoy, these are my hobbies or whatever, and they don't align, then you could pretty quickly see, okay, this isn't what I would have said I care about. So the first thing is kind of looking at them and saying that, but if something matters to you, then it's going to produce itself. You're going to see it in either the priority of a schedule, priority of money that's being put towards that, or money, even in those goals, it's being saved for that thing that is a priority to you. But that's a good place to start, just to say, well, what do I even spend my time doing? Before I even get to the, like, what matters to me? Okay, what do I even spend it doing? Okay. Do I like this? Do I not? And I don't pretend that like there are people, that some people, look at their schedule and stuff and say, well, this is how it has to be. My finances, this is how it is, or this is how it is right now. So I'm not saying that you're going to look at this. Like even right now, I could look at my time and I'm like, okay, it's not where I want it to be, but am I moving in the direction? I have a friend who started taking like a fitness class and, kind of rearranged the schedule from doing this other thing to doing this thing because they really, really enjoyed it once they started doing it.
Yeah.
You just start making time for that. So whether that's quiet time, whether that's, devotion every day, journaling, it could be quiet personal things like that. It could be reading. It could be spending time with people. So making time to go to school, pick up, drop off, spending money on giving to organizations you care about. So see how there's just like this wide variety of things. It does not have to be these big goals that you spend a lot of money on or that you will reach in 50 years.
Right.
It's just these little things. Or do I go to the gym 3 times a week? Like, what is that? So I would say start where you are, look at those 2 things, and then ask yourself questions. Do I like this? Is this what I would say is important? If not, what do I need to change? And what's one thing I could just change, easily? Maybe that doesn't even cost any money if money is the issue. Or what's something, time-wise, if money isn't an issue, well then what's something with your time that you could start to put towards something that is important if you're not?
Right. And one other thing that I would add to that, I've always heard it said, what makes your heart sing and what breaks your heart? What makes you so excited and what makes you so angry? Even if it's as simple as, I really love getting my cup of coffee in the morning. Maybe you really like those morning hours and you need to protect them.
Yeah. I think that's great because they're good ways to ask yourself these questions because when you ask that question versus is this what I like or not, then you think about it differently. So I think that's a great way to other form of question to give people to answer.
Yeah. And once you identify what truly matters to you, once you identify the answers to these questions and start to piece together, like, what am I spending my time on? What do I wish I spent my time on? Now you have the information you need to create and execute a plan. Yeah. And this is something that, as financial advisors, this is what we do. We make plans based off of what people care about. And so this applies, like we are talking about, to more than just your finances. So what does this look like in your everyday life? How do you live out what matters to you?
Yeah. Yep. So like I would say, in the beginning, this can be a progression. So for me, this is what am I spending my time doing? So I've kind of mentioned some things like being able to pick up, drop off at school. So spending time with people, that's one big piece. And that's something too that even as time goes on, there's more people you want to spend time with. So I feel like this changes. And I might say like, I'm just barely kind of scratching the surface of like being able to do this for like 1 or 2 people in my life right now. So I'm not by any means saying, oh yeah, I'm meeting with everybody, hourly to really catch up on their life.
Right.
And it looks different. It could be by text or in person. So this is where one of the, I will say one of the downfalls of my personality of wanting to do everything, of wanting everyone, like wanting all of like everybody to be involved in everything is that it is actually really important for me to sit down and say what's important to me, because I want to do everything. I love being everywhere with everyone. And if I'm not careful, I'll just say, well, okay, family, friends, coworker, like let's all just go to a movie together, because then I get to do all of this with everyone. Well, what happens then is, people that, each one of those people may not feel like I really care about them because I'm actually like spending all this time with everyone, but I'm not really giving meaningful time to individual people in relationships. So one of the biggest things I actually see, I'm just going to give you this analogy as a financial advisor. I've seen people who, they want to diversify their money and they say, I'm going to give, this advisor $500,000 to manage, this advisor $500,000 to manage, and they spread it amongst other advisors. That's, that's totally fine if that's what you want to do. What happens then is, in doing that, you want to be important to someone, you want to be cared about. And so, but what happens when you're spreading it out like that, no one can help you like to the best and fullest extent because they don't have the whole picture. They don't have, and so what happens, and this was really early in my career that I saw this and kind of realized this, is in trying to become important to a lot of people, you actually become important to no one. And not that it's like importance, that I need to matter. It's not that, but it's, if I say I care about you, I need to be able to show, I want to show that to you in a meaningful way. So that would mean that I'm going to spend time devoted like just with you or just with my family or just with friends. You're going to make specific time. So that is a downfall of like my personality and wanting to do everything with everyone. I have to be really careful actually to go through this exercise and to ask myself continually, how am I showing this? And so that's why like scheduling it in and making time for that is really important. So that's why these have become important to me in ways that I've been able to do it.
So you talk about your calendar. What about your finances? How do you as a financial advisor organize your own finances in light of what matters to you?
Yeah. This is something else too that I will say is like in motion. So because Steve kind of does more of the accounting, the bookkeeping side, and I'm more of kind of like the day-to-day, like making decisions, where are we going forward? What's great about that is we both have like different views of our money. What is important though is that we come together to actually talk about that. And again, to say what's important to us. So how we have typically done this, but I say it's like always evolving because even as you do it every day, sometimes it's kind of like there might be different softwares that you want to use to where you don't have to do as much of the maintenance piece. So he typically like updates the books, and then, we'll sit and meet and say, wait, we are spending way too much, Michelle, on Starbucks, stop. So that's,
you wouldn't know anything about that.
Right, exactly. But I'm like, I have, we have our own issues. We have these same conversations. And so these are things where then we have to come together and say, wait, okay, so what is it? And again, like taking these two strengths of ours, so his more of the detailed, mine more big picture, come together to actually sit down and say, so this is where if, as a couple, when your money is together, you have to be sure that you're doing this together because one person might be a saver, one person might be a spender, and you want to be sure that you're respecting each other in that. And so this is where it's saying, okay, I know I want to spend or I want to, give it all away, but I really do want to make sure that I'm honoring you too in our ability to save. So that's kind of how we do it where, he'll on a regular basis kind of update the books. So just kind of like for our business, it's kind of more personal. But it's like, okay, update the books. Then we look at it together, kind of project out where are we going to be. It's very similar to our business. So that's why it might sound like it is, but this is how, if you're someone, neither of you kind of handle money or bookkeeping, there are websites out there. There's some that are kind of more done for you, like a Monarch Money that you pay for. There's others like You Need a Budget or QuickBooks or, some of those that are out there that you can easily use too, that just kind of download all these transactions like Quicken. You download these transactions and then they kind of come in. So whatever that is, but those are great tools to help you then look at kind of the past. So look at your money. Where has it been going? Is this where we want it to go? If not, what do we need to change? If so, great, we just keep on going. And then you talk about it and then you make changes. So very similar to that calendar, starting to ask yourself those questions of where do we want to be? So
yeah, that's great. So we've talked about what it looks like to create a plan. One of the hardest parts, though, is sticking to the plan, because it's so easy to be swayed from your plan, even if you know your why, even if you understand what matters to you and why you want to accomplish it.
Yeah.
And sometimes the reason it's hard to follow through isn't because, the plan is difficult or it's challenging, but it's because we hear the opinions of other people and we care more about what matters to them than what matters to us. And so I want to ask you, Michelle, what does it take to remain consistent to your plan in the face of other people's thoughts and opinions?
Yeah, this is something I've really been thinking a lot about, and I just kind of use the word resolve, like having this resolve that this is who I am, this is what matters to me, this is what I care about, so all the things we've been talking about. Because now that you identify them, you're exactly right, you now go out into the world and face everything else, that is going to battle for your time, your money, all those things. And so something that I feel like I've seen more and more over probably the past few recent years is just having, like, you personally deciding this is what's important to me. So as we're talking about these, time and money things, these could be silly little things where you're like, this doesn't really matter. I don't have to fight hard to do this. But there are things where you're going to be like, I believe this, or so I want this. I want to spend my money on this. I want to be spending my time in this way. This matters to me. And it matters so much that I want to be really strong and resolved in these decisions and in these priorities. So one of the things I think, and this is why just starting with these questions you're asking yourself is so important, because you're asking yourself, and as you think about it, you might, how if someone asks you, hey, how you doing today? And you're like, oh, I'm good. Okay, if someone is kind of like, yeah, I'm good, I could persuade you to probably be bad or to be amazing. Like, if you're just kind of good. However, if you're like, it's a great day, it might be really hard to persuade you that it's a bad day.
Yeah.
So it's that type of thought and resolve and confidence that comes from how I talk about my priorities, how I solidify what they even are, how I think about them. As you're thinking about them, if you can't get to that level of a resolve, it might not be that big of a priority. So this is where it's like, at the end of this process of saying, these are my priorities, this is what matters to me, I'm going to have this resolve of like, this matters and it matters. And regardless of what comes up, I'm sorry, I care about you and I want to help. We're going to have to do that a different time because I've got this. Like, you're going to be able then to make those things a priority. If you're not, then when someone says women don't run businesses, when someone says teachers don't make money, then it's going to change or affect the decisions you make and whether you do or don't do the things. Now, I look back and I'm doing exactly what I love doing. I am a teacher. I am a CEO, running a business. I am a financial advisor, working with people, having relationships. So I am doing all of those things. It just looks, a little different than at each one of those steps. Like, I'm not just a teacher, but we get to do videos. We're doing this podcast. We're teaching people. So that's the amazing thing, is it's all worked for good. It's just, if you don't have that resolve, then someone along the way could say something, and then what could have been maybe what you could have accomplished and been amazing at, you don't end up doing, not because it wasn't important to you, but because someone told you you couldn't, or because you weren't really resolved in it. It was a good idea if it all worked out. But if you're resolved, and so now as you have conversations with friends, when you talk about things that people have different opinions on, I don't always have to share my opinion. I can listen to others. I can have conversations with people that disagree and just say, okay, and so one of the phrases I feel like over the last few years actually that has come out, when you're in this conversation and maybe you don't agree with someone or you don't know what to say, what we just started saying was, well, there's that, and you just leave it at that, because it's not worth, again, if relationships matter, which they do to me, it's not worth it to me to destroy a relationship because of a disagreement. It's just, okay, there's that, and
There's
we move
that.
on. So that's kind of what that resolve does and doesn't look like. That's why it's so important, is because you will see it. If you're resolved and you really care about it, you're going to see that in your life, and it's going to start to make changes as you decide this is a priority. If it's not, then that isn't really a priority maybe that you believe in. So you need to maybe just keep thinking about it and saying, okay, and sometimes it takes a little bit to figure out, well, what is it that makes my heart sing? What is it that really makes me excited to get up every day? And some days you just don't feel like it. So, it doesn't have, you'll know once you do land on it, because you will be resolved. So that's just something that's been more important, is really standing strong in what you believe and what's important to you. Because sometimes you do have to fight for it. You have to fight for your time. Or where you spend your money.
That's great. So there are a lot of voices we hear every single day. How do we know whose voice to listen to? Because sometimes there are people giving us advice who we should listen to, and they might be saying something that we don't want to hear. How do you know whose advice to take?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? Man, I think of a lot of important voices in my life. So family, counselor, close family. So like Steve, Emma, parents, siblings, close friends. So people in your life that you share things with, you're vulnerable with, and you share things that are hard, sad, things that you're like maybe not proud about or proud of, but you share those things, and you know that they're going to listen. And they're going to speak into, I share, with some of my friends, I share, like, I'm a person actually that needs words of affirmation. So I have friends that I have shared, like, wow, I really realize when I haven't had people speaking into my life to say, like, you are doing a great job doing this. And this is probably why, as a client, like, you do get emails from us that say, you're doing a great job managing your finances because you've had some big changes this year. And this, like, I say these things to people probably because that's actually what I like to hear and need to hear. That's just kind of one of my, they say love languages. That's a way that I am affirmed and built up. And so I share that with my friends. So they know that about me. And I don't say it in a way to be like, you got to talk to me this way, Right. It's more like, hey, I want you to know me so that when I'm sharing something with you that's hard or sad, encouraging, they know exactly how to talk to me. And so that's an example of, my friends, if I've shared that with them, my family, people like that, they're going to know how to talk to me. So now, if I'm asking for advice, it doesn't mean that they're always just going to say something cheery, or they're not going to just say what I want.
Michelle, you're so fabulous.
Exactly. Like words like that, like you can tell when they're fake. It's like, stuff like that. I'm like, okay, that's not it. But when they're like well thought, like meaningful, and like they'll say something, hey, this is a great idea, or hey, I see what you're saying. But you just take it differently, and they're going to say it in a different way. Now, again, not everybody's perfect, so it doesn't mean that everyone's always going to say everything perfectly. However, when people know you and you share this about yourself, you will know the people who you want to ask of. So for me, it's close people. So it's family, friend, like close friends, counselor, when it's big things, when I'm just not sure, and something about my personality of, I need to get better at this, I'll talk to it with this close circle of friends, maybe over like weeks or a month. And what happens is you start to hear these different voices. And what I have found is when you have like that close circle of friends and people that you can talk to, you'll hear one thing from one person, you'll hear something else from somebody else, something else from somebody else. And what happens is it starts to take shape of kind of this bigger picture of, okay, this is it. And so it might not be, what I initially thought, but you start to get this feedback, and then you kind of like summarize that. That's what I have found. So it actually is really helpful, because then I'm getting little bits and pieces, and it just encourages me, or I get the sense of like, this is not something I should be thinking about or doing. Yeah. So when you have that close friend, so again, it takes like vulnerability and sharing your life with people, so that when it comes back and you're asking for their opinions, you can trust it or know, okay, this is where they're coming from. And then you ultimately decide. So that's for me what that looks like. I don't know if that helps.
And I think you highlight something interesting. You said that it's people who you share vulnerabilities with. It's not just some average person on the street or some random person on the internet who doesn't know anything about you or your situation. It's somebody who knows you and has seen the more challenging parts of you and is able to speak into that because of that.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because there are people who have seen who have seen and know a lot of those pieces. doing, like, there might be something that you're saying, I need to do this hard thing. And they might know this is exactly what you need to do because this is going to overcome something for you personally to be able to move into this step or this, like this relationship or to be better at this. When you're met with, well, what's the advice? Really consider, do they know your history? Do they know you as a person? And you're exactly right. Kind of that, have you shared things with them so that the advice actually is valid? So yeah, it's really being thoughtful, I guess, of those people. That is honestly the biggest thing is, who do you listen to? Being thoughtful of the people in your life that you're giving the ability to speak into you. And also just to know when it's like, okay, there might be some times where someone says something and you're like, okay, nah, I don't think so, and you disagree actually with what they're saying, but you still ask it and you still are like, okay, and it gives you some guidance. So sometimes, it doesn't mean that everyone's always going to be able to help you with everything. For me, I'm a person who likes to talk things out. Big surprise, I know. But talking things out for me is actually really helpful. So when I talk to a variety of people, it's like light bulb moments just keep coming. So for my personality, I know that. Other people, they just need to think, and just kind of be outside in a quiet place so that then they start to have these light bulb moments. And I have those too, but so kind of understanding even yourself and how you work through things is also really important.
Right. Yeah. It's so important that the people who we get advice from understand what's important to us.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, do you have any closing thoughts? Anything else that you want to share?
Yeah. I would just summarize with, sometimes on these podcasts, we keep it really financially related. Sometimes we kind of dig into more of these kind of softer topics of emotions. The reason for that is because all of these really combine together. They marry together so that you get really good advice, but also that you're making good decisions and that you're really clear so that, the biggest thing is that you can be confident about whatever it is that you decide. You have that resolve. Some of these things we've talked about. That's how you see this come through in our business is that's what we're encouraging people to do for themselves is what's important to you. We want you to have the confidence to be able to then go out and do this stuff and have the hope that it's actually going to happen. And so that's the whole process of let's look at the numbers. Let's show you it's possible. Okay. And it's happening.
Right.
And that right there is a financial planning process. And so that's what we hope our clients walk away with and just over time continue to gain more confidence in.
No, that's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today as a guest. And thank you all for joining us and listening. As we head into 2024, this is our focus for our clients. What matters to you, really? We want to know. And in talking about it, we, as financial advisors, will be able to design and carry out a plan that matches your values. So talk to your advisor and share what you care about, because your advisor should care about you and should care about what matters to you. But that is all for this episode. We'll see you in the next one. With that in mind, let's cue that outro. Thanks for listening. To find any links or resources related to this episode, check out our show notes. Your host was Michelle Smallenberger, a certified financial planner and CEO. The guests featured are from Financial Design Studio, a team of experienced, fiduciary, fee-only advisors based in Chicago. Anna Lewis is the executive producer of the Behind the Designs podcast. And as always, for more information about Financial Design Studio and who we are, check out our website, financialdesignstudio.com. And final note, no content discussed on this podcast should be taken as financial advice. Financial Design Studio accepts no responsibility for your individual choices. We'll see you in the next episode.